care. I like his movies. He's a nice guy, good actor. Please welcome back to the show, Todd Farmer.
It is a pleasure to be back.
It's my pleasure, and plus, thank you for sending me another headshot so I can give to the Todd Farmer shrine that I have in my office.
Sweet.
Yes, I'm even going to shave my head just to have. I'm going to be Todd Farmer for Halloween. I might get confused with Steve Austin, the wrestler, but
well, you might not recognize me right now because I shaved my chin. So
that's a hard look to pull off for a white guy. The no hair, no facial hair look.
Well, I did it purely for Jack Skellington because the facial hair messes with the makeup. And it is Halloween, after all.
So you're going to get dressed up for Halloween.
I am indeed.
I'm glad you got onto this because it helps me with a violation. I feel there's a couple violations that happen during Halloween, and this one, it's a gray area. Todd, would you say it's a violation for an adult to dress up during Halloween giving out candy to the kids?
Right.
Do you think that's a violation for an adult to do that, who gets dressed up?
I plan on doing it myself.
See, I'm okay with it. I think the true violation is, it's only a violation if you get dressed up as Jason Voorhees or Michael Myers and you're scaring little kids while you're giving out the candy.
Oh, you mean, well, I don't know if I'll dress up Halloween night. Is that what you mean?
Yes.
I don't know if I'll do that. I'm certainly doing it for a party here or there. But, I don't know. I hadn't thought about dressing up. I don't know. I probably won't just because I'm lazy.
But you don't do the other thing. You know, the big violation is, you remember this as a kid, I do. You go out Halloween and there's that house with no lights and they put out all the candy.
Yeah.
That's a total violation.
Yeah, I don't, yeah. I think you have to earn it. You have to knock on the door and say trick or treat or you don't get no candy.
Exactly. And you're supposed to get, it's been so long. I live out here in Pennsylvania. I got out in the sticks now and I love it. I could watch, I said it before, I could watch the Prowler naked in my living room with the windows open. Nobody's going to see me. I'm that far out. But if you're home, I forget the rules. Do you give out 1 piece, 2 piece? I mean, it's I'm out of the loop now with Halloween.
That's a good question. I don't know. I think I tend to do it on the reward system. If I like your costume, you're going to get more candy.
You got to give the good candy out, the Butterfingers, the Twix, the Snickers.
But I mean, I feel like, again, you have to earn it. You got to say trick or treat. You got to be dressed really well. And I'm a dick, so I'm going to give the best costume, in my opinion, the most candy.
And what do you do? Because this reminds me of an episode of my favorite show, Curb Your Enthusiasm. What do you do if a couple teenagers come to the house with no costume? They get nothing, right?
Well, they get me chasing them out of the yard. That's when I go full Eastwood, get off my lawn.
with the axe,
no problem with that.
With the accent and the shotgun.
Oh yeah.
And I know now you just got done working on this one's coming out soon, which hopefully American Muscle. You just starred in. Are we going to get a release date on that one? Because it has George P. Wilbur, one of my favorite guys to play Myers. Is there a release date coming out for this one?
Yeah, I haven't asked. I mean, we did, I did ADR, I don't know, I did some ADR maybe 2 months ago. I talked to Nick, sent me a text the other night saying that he had seen a recent trailer and that seen the poster, and so I know things are moving forward. I tend to, once I leave a project, I tend to go into my little dungeon and start writing again, so I should probably follow up so that I could properly tell people what's going on with it.
And before we get into your realm of writing, unfortunately sometimes there's idiots out there who like to write to you. And it was back in May. You have class, I don't sometimes, so I can say things. So I'm going to get some just big stupid dope who's done nothing with their life actually said you should die because of Jason X. It was posted back in May, or you brought it to people's attention on Facebook. How many of those dumb comments do you get?
Oh, I get it all the time, but it doesn't bother me at all.
But this is
Look, for somebody to come in and say it's the stupidest movie for all time, it means they most likely spent money on it, and I'm happy with that. I don't make movies that are lukewarm. You either love them or hate them, and I have no problem with that.
And I always clarify to people, because when we first had you on back when years ago, I was January of 2011. It's been where I asked you about Jason X. Hey, take me through how you had to write that. And you explained that it pretty much the stipulation was you couldn't write that Friday the 13th movie to take place in the woods. I mean, it couldn't be like any other Friday the 13th movie. So you put it in space.
I did. Originally I was just gonna put it in the future. That's really what it all boiled down to, because there were two things that were going on at the time. One was Freddy vs. Jason had been in development for a long time. Writer after writer after writer, teams of writer had come and gone. Even I had done a draft of it for Cunningham. And DeLuca was, who ended up, oddly enough, DeLuca, who later in years in life produced Drive Angry, at the time he was running New Line, and I had heard a rumor that he was pretty much done with the whole Crystal Lake thing. He liked, we were on the 9th of the series, and he was ready to do something different with Jason. And so that, plus the idea that we didn't know what they were going to do with Freddy versus Jason. We knew there was a storyline there, and we didn't know where we would fall in the timeline to that. So I thought, well, what if we pushed it years into the future? And so the original concept was basically Blade Runner. What if Jason, somebody found Jason cryogenically frozen in a world that is very Blade Runner, and they wake him up and he has to, it's a fish out of water, or a slasher out of water. And so that was the original concept. But then it came back and they said, look, we can't afford that. And I said, okay, fine, let's do Alien. And I never had a problem with the horror movies in space, because I always felt like Alien worked, and so the others just weren't done very well. You could do a slasher really well, and I still believe you could do one really well. I don't know that Jason X was done really well, but it's certainly a fun ride.
One of the bright sides of Jason X has to be the high body count.
There is a pretty high body count.
And that's what you go to see a Friday the 13th movie for, is the kills and the body count. So it also had some of the most, the creative kills, the gory kills, and a lot of them. I mean, what else do you go to see a Friday the 13th movie for?
that, especially when you're talking about the 10th movie, of that run. So, there's... But the thing is, I actually really enjoy the Friday the 13th movies. I like what they did with them, because they're all very unique. It's not... each one in itself, the first movie is very unique because, as Scream taught us, it's not Jason. It's most people forget that. And the second movie is very unique in that it is Jason. It's not Mom. It's this little boy that we see jump out of the water at the end of the first movie. And the third one is unique because it's in 3D, and it introduces the hockey mask for the first time. And I like that. Even as the series goes deeper and deeper, they're each one very unique, and I've always liked that. And I feel like I feel like Jason X fits into that because it in itself is very unique from the others.
And that's a real good way of looking at it, because I think as fans, and I'm no expert, I'm a fan. We sometimes we feel attached to these franchises where we're saying, hey, this is ours. You can't do that. We expect so-and-so to do this. He can't do that. So I think that's where that small disconnect comes in when you do change it up a little bit. But it's a valid point. Right. It's a great point that, yes, Friday the 13th has that unique taste where, God, look at the fifth one. Well, we can't have Jason in it, but make Jason, but he's not Jason.
Look, that is pretty interesting. Because, and plus you number 4 introduces Corey, right?
Yes.
So that in itself is pretty unique, because at the end, Corey does the whole, instead of dressing up as Mom, he dresses up as young Jason. That's pretty awesome. And then the second one continues the Corey storyline, but you don't have Jason, you have somebody completely different. That was ballsy, very ballsy. So I appreciate it for that. And then the next one, you introduced Zombie Jason, which is beautiful. I just feel like I feel like as far as the creativity in a franchise, I think the Friday the 13th franchise is the best franchise when it comes to creativity, because you have Jason fighting Carrie, you have Jason Jason takes a boat called Manhattan. I mean, it's there's some very unique storylines there, and I'm proud to be a part of the Friday the 13th franchise.
And when you take stories, it's something that's original and make it different. I feel, maybe because I'm a 31-year-old guy who grew up watching horror movies of the 80s and 90s, I get a little taken back when somebody has to remake it. But your remake of My Bloody Valentine is by far one of the better remakes. In part, I was never a fan of the one from '81, which is shocking to many because I'm a fanboy of the '80s. How did you approach the My Bloody Valentine remake? And were you a fan of the one from 1981?
I was a fan. I hadn't seen it in forever, and I think when I first went into it, I wanted to stay away from it because I didn't want to be too influenced by it. So if you look at, and the script that came to me was very different. It was, the miner wasn't a miner. He was a fireman, and took place at a pulp mill. There weren't any mines. I mean, it was very different storyline. What that draft kept was it had the love triangle from the original, but it had two of the characters were married. There was a stronger, more adult love triangle there, which was one of the things that I appreciated in that movie, because all of these slasher movies, they're all teenage. Bloody Valentine, the original, was those were adults, and so I liked the idea that you were making a slasher movie with adults and adult problems and adult storylines, and so that's what we kept. And it was to take a movie that was fairly obscure. I mean, I think the budget for the original My Bloody Valentine was $27 in a carton of smokes. And so we had the ability to throw a little bit more money at it. And plus, we had, this idea of, which came before I got there, the 3D idea. What if we did it in 3D with today's technology? And so when, we were shooting, the 3D red cameras that we were using at the time, they were gigantic. I mean, you can get them now and you can just carry them around like nothing. But, the ones we had were the size of refrigerators. And so every car that we used, we had to make sure that we could get this giant refrigerator in it. And then we were shooting in a mine. And, we had to be aware that, you're in a mine where the tallest point in the mine is less than 6 feet. And yet we have to pack these gigantic cameras down there. I mean, it was a challenge, but I love the look of the movie. And I actually like the story in the movie. A lot of people say, well, it doesn't work if it's not in 3D. Well, that's your opinion. I think it does work, because when we wrote it, we didn't write it with 3D in mind. We wrote it with story and character in mind. But as you go through the process, you're thinking, okay, well, what will look great in 3D? Well, this will look good in 3D. Well, what if we do this? A lot of the greatest 3D gags came from Gary Tunnicliffe and Brian Pearson, who was the DP, and Patrick, the director, Patrick Lisier. Because as they were on set and planning things before I got there, they would, you would see moments when you're, places where your setting allows for interesting 3D. And what I didn't expect, and when I started watching dailies, was what Cameron used to talk about was it's not about the flying at your face. It was just you're sort of immersed into this world. And we had a lot of that, and we didn't even expect it. What we were expecting was the old, House of Wax and Friday the 13th Part 3, where everything flies at you all of a sudden. But we had so much more than that, because you're suddenly a voyeur inside this story. You're in the movie with the characters, and that's what I liked about it. And I think you get a lot of that from Gravity, the latest movie, which I haven't seen yet, but from what I'm hearing. I'm going to see it tonight, actually.
I recently saw it, and I was impressed. I think you're going to enjoy it. A lot of great tension. That's what makes, to me, that's what made Gravity very well.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Gravity, it works because of the tension within the movie. When you sit back, that's what you'll realize more than anything. It's just that's what builds it up. It's all that you don't know what's going to happen next. And what I noticed a little trend, and I'm not looking for it, but Drive Angry 3D, which is good, and My Bloody Valentine 3D, very good. And it's not the 3D trend, Todd, but when you're in these movies, do you have to take your shirt off? I'm seeing a naked Todd a lot of times now.
Are you talking about me?
Yeah.
My shirt off? Look,
You
don't want me to take my shirt off. But...
Well, it's been we got Todd Farmer's butt in 3D.
Yeah, you get my boobs and my butt in every movie. It's I think I've told the story a bunch, but for Valentine, it was literally the studio wanted to hire a local for that part, and that's fine. There's nothing wrong with Pennsylvania actors; they're fantastic. The worry was that if you bring somebody onto a set who hasn't worked with special effects before, and certainly who hasn't done a sex scene, I hadn't done one either, but still, I was worried that we didn't have a lot of time. The schedule was very tight. I was worried that, if you get the wrong person in there and they freak out and you lose time and you lose, it could cost money and it could cost quality in the long run. And I was basically bitching about it. And Patrick said, yeah, I know. Would you do it? And so, and that's really how it started. Now with Drive Angry, we did that on purpose. We did it as sort of a wink and a nod towards Valentine, because we thought it would be funny to have basically the same character show up again and do some of the same stuff, but even more over the top this time. And so that's how that happened. But no regrets.
Now you do make a great point. I couldn't imagine personally if I had to simulate a love scene. I'd be scared shitless and embarrassed that I have to pretend. No, it's and you're right. That's tough for anybody, especially if they've never acted before. What if you get the opposite? What if the guy's a little bit of a loose cannon? He's there with a naked woman. And that's why it's a good point. And you stepped up to the plate.
Well, I figure, in these kind of movies, we always demand that the young ladies take their clothes off, and I figure, if I'm willing to ask that of the young lady actresses in our movie, then I might as well be willing to put my own butt on the line.
You got to get a little. It's just really eye candy for all the ladies out there. It's just Todd's being modest.
I think you're forgetting my huge gay following.
Hey, you know what? They buy, and that's all that matters.
I'm here. I am here to make everyone happy.
Absolutely. And this one I was curious. And we're not so much in the in a couple more, but this one it's more about dating. We all have to date. But I was curious, because you're a single father. You were a single father, and how was that tough to date somebody? And you have a child. You have to look at things differently. You can't just go, "Oh, she's very beautiful. I'm definitely want to go out on a date with her and introduce her to my daughter." How difficult is that when you are a father and you're going out again dating?
Well, I mean, it was odd for me because at the time, when I separated, I was living in Pacific Grove, California, which is 6 hours north of Los Angeles. Most of my business was in LA, so I would come to LA once or twice a month, and so it's in that situation, it's tough because the people anyone that I would date would most likely be in Los Angeles when I would start. And for the longest time, I just didn't, because it was just a hassle. It was just too much trouble. And I was still married at the time we were separated. It wasn't easy because it takes so much effort to be a screenwriter and so much effort to be a father. And there just wasn't time for anything else. And then my ex-wife and daughter ended up moving out of the state, and so now I fly back and forth, and it's been tricky, and so I don't I wonder I assume it's tricky when everyone lives in the same town, maybe even trickier. But it's not, it's not an ideal situation. My daughter's 7, and she is fantastic. And I probably post pictures and tweets about her more than my horror fans would like. It's weird. I've been doing this since 1996, and it still feels weird to say horror fans. all the people who tolerate the stuff that I do, those people that's what I'm talking about.
Yeah. Us loyalists.
Yeah, but it's a difficult. But I've been dating Shannon, and she's fantastic, and so and loves horror, which certainly helps. She's seen more horror movies than I have.
Well, that's a big thing. That has to be a big thing, because so you get to know her and you find out she's a horror fan. Do you ask her, hey, what did you think of The Messengers? Was it good?
No, I don't. The thing is, that stuff really doesn't interest me. I mean, if somebody comes up and says, hey, I loved your movie, well, that's great. I'm glad you did. I mean, I write what I want to see. And I just hope that everybody else feels the same way. And so that's probably why the stuff that I write is either loved or hated. And I'm okay with that too. And I met Shannon after Drive Angry. So she had already seen Drive Angry. And we had met through, I knew of her through Facebook. So, but she goes to all the events and does all the stuff in town, and now we do horror nights together, and we do Not Scary Farm, and it's fun.
And that's what makes any relationship successful. And speaking of your success, you've written movies, they've been made. What do you feel is the number one mistake inspiring screenwriters do? I'm talking about the people who may not be out in Hollywood, may live in Wisconsin somewhere, and they want to write a screenplay and send it to Hollywood. What do you feel their number one mistake is as an aspiring screenwriter?
I think the biggest mistake is fooling yourself. That's what I've seen more than anything else. On occasion, I will, if I don't have something that I'm working on, I will read scripts and give comments. And I haven't done it in 4 or 5 months. I don't think I've done it since January, but maybe I have. I can't remember. But I don't do it often. But I have done it, and a lot of times what I'll find is a lot of people who contact me, they don't have their script done yet, or and there's probably 2 things. One is your first screenplay. It's really not that precious. It's not your first child.
Yeah,
it's a screenplay. Just get it done. Get it done, and understand that it's probably horrible. I wrote, and I forget the number exactly, but before Jason X got made, I had written something like 22 or 23 screenplays for Cunningham, and that's a lot. Now, some of those were rewrites, some of those were page one, but I'd written a lot. None of those got made. Jason X got made. So that's a lot of input in order to get one movie made. And I've found that, for the most part, those numbers still pretty much exist. Because even now that I have some success, you still have to go through a ton of work to get the next job. And screenplay after screenplay and outline after outline. So that's an issue. Don't treat your first screenplay so precious. Just get it done and then start on the next one and shop that one around and just keep writing every day. Stephen King writes every day except for 3 days. I don't know if he still does that, but I read that somewhere. His birthday, Christmas, and I forget what the other day was. But just write every day. And the other thing is don't fool yourself. Don't come to me and say that you're a screenwriter or that you want to and not be writing, because that seems to be the biggest thing. Well, I have these ideas and I'm a screenwriter, but I've never finished my first screenplay. Well, dude, finish. Writers write. That's the biggest issue.
And I feel so many people. Maybe it goes with anything. Anything you do, you always think it's great, because it's just the mindset of Well, it's perfect. It's ready to be made. You probably find that a lot too. That they think this is, oh, give it to Brad Pitt. He can act in it. Do you think it's?
Yeah, that's true, and that is regardless of whether you're a good writer or a bad writer. Oddly enough, because I feel that way. When I turn in it, well, the interesting thing to me, and the thing that's the most frustrating to me, is when I finish a draft, it says rough draft or first draft, and then I send it to whoever I'm sending it to, and they come back to me and they say, you know what, this is a great starting point. We love where this is. We can take this and we can actually make something from this. And I'm thinking, you're a moron, because it may say rough draft and it may say first draft, but every morning that I sit down and start writing, I rewrite. So although it says first draft, I have rewritten it and rewritten it and rewritten it, and I'm not going to give you something that I don't feel isn't ready to go before the cameras. And so that's a little frustrating. And it's one of the things that I love so much about Drive Angry, because we wrote Drive Angry. We went out with it, and we got a couple of comments, and I don't think we addressed the comments that we got. What we did was we decided on our own. Billy Burke plays a character who's a cultist in the movie, and we had originally let me figure out how to speak, with grammar, because I as a writer, we had written him in a way that he was con artist when it came to what he was doing, and we decided to rewrite it so that he believed what he was preaching, which we felt like made him that much more scary than being a con artist. We wanted him to believe his rhetoric. And so that was the only rewrite that we did, and it maybe took a day, maybe a day and a half. And then we went out with it and sold it. So we were kind of a second draft, maybe you could call it that, but we sold it, and that's the movie we made. We didn't rewrite it and rewrite it and rewrite it. Sure, there were production rewrites. You change this setting, you tweak this character for certain actors, but for the most part, there was no overdevelopment in it. And that, to me, is why the movie feels a little bit more fresh or at least the story feels more fresh than some.
And plus, that movie is also packed with a lot of great actors. David Moore is one of my favorites. Yeah, William Fichtner, who never ages, by the way. He's looked the same since the 80s. And, of course, Nicolas Cage. And with good dialogue, good directing, I still don't know to this day, because Drive Angry seemed to upset some people. I don't think some people who didn't get the movie, they just flat out didn't get the movie. I don't know what they thought the movie was supposed to be, but it seems that people. Well, the marketing wasn't great.
No, the marketing wasn't great, and I don't think the studio knew what it was and what to do with it. I don't know that I would have known any better either, but it was that, and plus 3D had, we had sort of helped create 3D with Valentine. Valentine was the first live action 3D movie. We made a ton of money, or the studio made a ton of money, and then we actually couldn't get work. It was kind of remarkable. People kept saying it was a fad, it was a fluke, but yet every studio was churning out 3D movies, and a lot of those were post converted, so they didn't look that great, and people got burned out on 3D, got burned out on paying the 3D ticket prices, and so when we came along with Drive Angry. I think people were sick of 3D at the moment. Plus, Nick had come out with a bunch of movies in a row. It just seemed like everything that could have gone wrong went wrong on that one. But I'm still very proud of the movie. I have no regrets whatsoever. I mean, I wish there was a little more money on screen. There's some effects that I wish were better, stuff like that. But for the most part, as far as the story and the acting, I have no regrets whatsoever. I think everybody gave us exactly what we needed, and in many cases, way more than we ever expected. Nick was amazing. David walks onto set, and he just, you just believe him. And he's, it's funny because they're all very different. Nick throws Nickisms out left and right. That's what he does. He's constantly trying different things. Fichtner's the same way. Fichtner would still be shooting if he were allowed. We'd still be there, because he loves to just do it over and over and try different this and try different that. David comes on set and he gives you exactly what you wrote. And so, it was amazing. We had a blast. I keep in touch with I probably keep in touch with Bill the most, and on occasion, Amber and I will either text back and forth or Facebook or something like that. But it's been a, it's. I'm glad I made that one. I have no regrets.
And one more before we talk about the Halloween fan film contest and then let you go. Of course, I got to bring it up. Boy, Todd, it wasn't that long ago where it was the summer of 2011, and the dumbasses, wannabe writers over at Horrorbid, where this show was once located, made the stupid ass announcement that Halloween 3D was greenlit. And we had each other's contact information. I remember we went back and forth. And by the way, and I told this story before, Todd was such a gentleman who should have, Todd, you should have called me every name in the book. Because, Todd, you thought I was running Horrorbid.
I did.
Which is an insult. You can call me a dumb wop dago, a stupid guinea. I won't get insulted. But you say I'm running Horrorbid. Oh, God. But, so, and that was a while back. It's sad that Halloween 3D didn't happen. I guess my main thing as a Halloween fan, as I said, if you could pick, as we have our sports teams, what could be your horror movie that's your franchise? Mine's Halloween. How can I ask this up? Was Halloween? Can you talk? Is there any little insight you give with Halloween 3D? Was it going to follow Halloween 2?
It was going to. Did we never talk about this?
No. I think the last time we talked, you couldn't. It was still up in the air. You didn't know, and we weren't going to spoil.
At this point, it's definitely not going to happen. But yes, we came in with we were going to start up maybe 2 minutes before Rob's last movie ended, and we. Well, I'll just tell you what we started with. It won't really matter. There's basically a moment where you see Michael killing. Let me think the end of the movie. Make sure I get it right. At the end of the movie, Michael kills.
We have Loomis dying.
Does he kill? He kills Loomis, right?
Yes, Malcolm McDowell's character.
Right. Okay. So at the end of our script, you see that. And then you pull back to reveal Michael standing there watching this. And then you look again, and she's killing Loomis. And she looks around, and she sees him, and she sort of wakes up in shock, and he takes the mask, and he puts it over her head. And then she walks out of the cabin and falls on her knees, and she takes the mask off. And the moment she does, the moment the mask comes off, we go into 3D. And so the world opens flat. And then from that point forward, we basically give you a completely different ending to that movie. And at the end of that first act, Michael's killed. And so then, time card pops up and it says a year later, and we open on Laurie in an institute, and then we reintroduce the shape. And the beginning of the movie, you have what I would call Michael as the T-Rex, and then we kill him and bring back basically John Carpenter's The Shape. And so the rest of the movie is a throwback to the original John Carpenter Halloween, and the way Michael is, the way Michael was in the original movie.
Oh, that's I wanted that.
That was and so it was. It was our. We didn't. I appreciated what Zombie did. To this day, I love Devil's Rejects, and so it's I was never one of the haters when it came to Zombies remake. I wouldn't have thought to do it because to demystify Michael was. Michael being the guy who could live next door to anyone and just, for no reason whatsoever, just go insane. That was more scary to me than to actually show us why he went insane. But that's just me. And, so this Halloween 3D will be a big regret because I am sad that we never got to tell that story because it was sort of the best of both worlds. And it was a great script, and it's an odd story because we were supposed to do it fast. The They wanted to shoot the movie before we shot Drive Angry, which meant we had to write it fast, which meant Patrick and Gary and everybody else was in prep. And, we wrote the script really fast, and it went to, the key players, and everyone responded wonderfully. But then it was decided we just didn't have the time and money to shoot it before Drive Angry. And if anything went wrong, we would end up jeopardizing Drive Angry, and we ended up jeopardizing both movies. And so it was decided that we would wait until after Drive Angry. And then after Drive Angry, they wanted to do Hellraiser. So we dove into the Hellraiser world.
And one thing with the 3D, I just want to know, because I love Halloween 2 from 1981. It's one of my favorites. Was Myers going to take place mostly at the Institute, going after Laurie?
That was a big setting, yeah. Budget wise, and just as far as being the idea of being trapped, in a enclosed environment. Yeah, it was a fun story. A lot of smart characters. A lot of nice twists and turns. It was going to be a fun one.
Well, thanks a lot, Weinsteins. I would have loved that. I really would, because that's why I loved Halloween 2, enclosed space, stalking the prey. What are you going to do? You know what, Todd? Let's make it on YouTube. Come on.
Perfect.
I got $20. I think
that'll work.
Yeah, well, fans will do it. But fans do make their own horror films, and that's why we have two. And Todd is gracious enough to be the judge, to look over the finalists of the Halloween fan-made film contest. And boy, this is good because the winner you pick whoever you feel. There's no rules of judging for this. It's pretty much, I guess, take it how you want it. If you want to pick the winner, because I would like to see this made into a full movie, do it that way. But the winner will get the Halloween 2 mask officially from Trick or Treat Studios.
Nice.
So you and your girlfriend can watch them together. There you go. There's your weekend. You can
well, there you go.
watch Halloween fan-made films. I think you'll enjoy it. I always enjoy having you on. It's just fun, and I enjoy following you on Twitter just to see some of the haters out there. So
haters are fun.
Yeah, I gotta go on Twitter and be one of those fake tough guys. But I'll give you the insults that are not even insults, but they sound bad. I love the shit out of Jason X so much I got a tattoo, you asshole. And it's like, wait, what? Does he like it? Does he hate it?
Yeah,
I'll find a different approach.
It's interesting to me. I don't understand. We tell stories. Either you like the story or you don't like the story. I don't understand. I've gone to see movies before. Normally, when I see a movie, a lot of times it's like, ugh. I like the idea, but I wish they'd come to me and let me try to write it. Now, that's just ego talking, perhaps. But a lot of times I'll see that. I'll see a movie and I'll think, it had such potential. I wish I could have written it. And then there's other times I'll watch a movie and I'm like, man, that I could never do that. That's amazing. And then other times I write it or watch a movie and I'm like, I don't know what I would have done with that. I'm glad they didn't come to me. I didn't like it, and I don't want to like it. But what I've never done is gone on to, the public arena and just spewed venom, because I've been through the process. I know how many things can go wrong, and there's no way to know where to put the blame and who messed it up or how many messed it up or if it just was a train wreck from day one. There's no way to know that. And so I've always given movies the benefit of the doubt when it comes to that. I may not like it, but it doesn't mean I'm going to go trash and try to hurt somebody's career that way. Because a lot of times it will. You have that many people going out after somebody, you'll see people disappear from the business for a while.
And
it's a shame.
I could be wrong, but I believe the director and who wanted to do the Psycho remake that certain way had a tough time afterwards, because there was tons of backlash with that 1998 Psycho remake. So you're right. Sometimes, yes,
yeah, it can be a challenge because certainly it's not there are the Quentin Tarantinos, and they're the guys who basically have the run of the show. But for the most part, most of us don't. So, we're answering to our masters and trying to make. I mean, I used to think that, as a screenwriter, it was your job to tell the best story and fight tooth and nail for that story. And you do that. But the business changed, and I watched it change. You had a lot of young, hungry writers come in who were willing to work for less money and make whatever changes they were told to make. And so, and as a result, the business changed. And I think if you look back over the last 20 years, you see a decline in story because of that.
And sometimes
because what ended up happening is you no longer had people. Well, you no longer had guys who were actually good at telling stories, in charge of telling stories. You had people who had gone to, UCLA and got a film degree and can't write anything, but they can certainly be an executive or a producer. And they were the ones who had power over the story. And so as a result, the story changed. So my job is now to take sometimes some of the most moronic notes ever and make them work and do it in the best way that you can. And that's the new Hollywood.
And that's what has to be a tough job, to say the least.
I understand now the resentment that a lot of writers have. I understand the bitterness, and I understand how that happens. But the thing is, I'm a glass half full person, so you just have to always look on the bright side of life and do everything you can to tell the best story that you can tell under the circumstances. I mean, with Drive Angry, one of the we never had the money to throw at problems ever. I mean, we literally did not. We didn't have one rain day. We didn't have one day that we could screw up. Not one single day. And we knew that we had a scene that takes place in a church, and we knew that scene was coming up. It originally took place outside. It was an overturned car and a roadblock on the interstate, and it was supposed to rain the entire week that we shot that. So days before we shot, we reconceived the whole thing inside a church, remodeled the whole church, did everything that we had to do to shoot it inside a church. And I think to this day it became better because of elements that happen inside that scene. Now you have pictures of Jesus in the background, and it suddenly brings on this whole other meaning. So as a writer, it is your job to take whatever is thrown your way and make it work. Outthink the problem. And that's what we did. We didn't have the money to throw at the screen, but we had our brains, and that's what we did. And so that's why the movie will always be special to me.
Well, it's going to be special to a lot of people because I think that's a movie that does every day find its audience, just like a movie such as Halloween 3 from 1982 keeps finding a new audience when at first it wasn't appreciated, and then as time has gone on, it is.
Well, it's right after it was over. Nick called Patrick and said, "Look, at the end of the day," and this was after we had our not so good opening. Nick said, and I forget the movie that beat us. It was a comedy, and it was about I don't remember what it was. I can't remember. But the funny thing was, Nick said, "Look, in 10 years, nobody will remember this other comedy, but they'll still be watching Drive Angry. It'll find a cult following." And I believe that. And even to this day, I can't remember the movie we were up against, the one that beat us.
I could actually tell you that one because it came out. It was February 25th. I remember. Oh God! I think I remember. It wasn't a comedy. It was a animation film that Johnny Depp, the Rango. I think it was. I think it was Rango.
We came out against Rango. That's not the one I was thinking. No, it was a comedy with one of the Wilson brothers. Owen Wilson was it Owen?
Oh, Hall Pass, and it must have been Hall Pass then.
Hall Pass, maybe that's what it was.
Yeah, because I remember Rango came out around that same time, but yeah, it could have been it because it was.
Yeah, it was Hall Pass. That's what it was. Yeah, and I never saw it, but I don't know if it's good or not. But
it's funny. It has its moments. It's not a bad movie, but it's not Drive Angry.
I like the movie that I made, and granted, I had a lot of help.
And you have to like what you do. If not, then it becomes torturous.
Yeah, writing is Writers write. There have been times in my career when I've, pursued other things like, other not just feature film, TV or video game adaptations or whatever it may be. And in every case, it's always been the writing. The writing is, whatever. I like to write. It makes me happy. It keeps me calm. I like to run and I like to write and I like to kill.
You like to kill it on the keyboard with a great script.
No, I like to kill people, but that publicly as much.
Yeah,
it's frowned upon. It really is.
Well, that's why you do the homeless people or the people that are not legally here, so they can't be traced back. That everybody knows it.
So, you get me.
Exactly. That's why we're Facebook friends. It's
true.
It's the way it works. As always, I appreciate you, Todd, coming on. We'll be right back.